peaceful rural African village surrounded by green hills and a flowing river, traditional huts made of clay and thatch, early morning mist and villagers starting their day. A respected African farmer standing proudly with his 3 wives, one nurturing, one bold, one mysterious, dressed in colorful traditional clothes, standing in front of a farmhouse. A mysterious young woman in a village sneaking out at night to meet a man in the shadows, moonlight casting eerie glows, sacks of stolen goods being loaded onto a cart. An emotional confrontation between an African man and a younger woman in traditional clothes, in a village yard at dawn, the man looking betrayed, the woman looking guilty and defensive. A solemn scene of a young woman walking away from a rural village, villagers watching from a distance, her face a mix of anger and sorrow, carrying a small bundle. A peaceful image of an older African man working alongside 2 women in a village field, smiling and cooperative, golden sunlight shining on them as they rebuild their life. A respected African farmer standing proudly on his farmland in a peaceful rural village, surrounded by healthy crops and livestock, wearing traditional clothing, with the sun setting behind green hills. 3 African women in traditional attire, standing together but with subtle emotional distance, one maternal and calm, one bold and confident, and one mysterious and elegant. Outside a well-kept village home, a handsome middle-aged African man meeting a beautiful younger woman in a distant village marketplace, vibrant colors and fabrics around them, the 2 exchanging glances, an air of romantic curiosity. A quiet village home at dusk, an African man standing in the shadows watching from behind a hut, looking concerned, while a woman in a wrap dress sneaks out of the house holding a small sack. A dramatic moonlit scene of a woman meeting a man in secret near a village barn, both loading sacks onto a donkey cart, with another man watching them in the shadows, full of heartbreak and shock. An intense early morning scene in an African village courtyard, a man confronting a woman, both in traditional clothing, her face defiant, his expression torn between pain and rage. Villagers in the background. A solemn woman walking alone away from a rural African village, holding a small bundle, villagers watching in silence, the sky heavy with emotion, and early morning light casting long shadows. An older African man working in a field with 2 supportive women by his side, smiling and sharing a quiet moment of peace, warm golden light washing over the village farm. An elderly African man sitting under a large tree surrounded by young villagers, telling a story with expressive hands, children and adults listening intently, a peaceful sunset in the background. A wise, wealthy African farmer standing proudly in a lush green village, wearing traditional clothing, surrounded by livestock, granaries, and a peaceful household with 3 women in colorful attire, each with distinct personalities, nurturing, bold, and mysterious. 3 African women in traditional village clothing sitting together in a yard. One looks motherly and warm, one sharp and confident, and the third mysterious and distant, an air of silent tension between them as they perform daily chores. An African man sitting alone outside his house under the moonlight, with a worried look on his face, shadows casting across the yard, holding a walking stick, watching the darkness with suspicion. A beautiful young African woman sneaking through a village yard at night, meeting a tall man in secret behind a barn. Sacks of goods being quietly loaded onto a donkey cart under the moonlight. A tense moment in a village courtyard at dawn. An older African man confronts a young woman who stands defiant, as villagers peek out from their huts, the man's expression full of hurt and betrayal. A young African woman walking away from a village, carrying a cloth bundle on her head, with villagers watching in silence from a distance, her face a mix of shame and defiance under the morning sun. An African man working in the fields with 2 women beside him, smiling as they harvest crops together, golden sunlight shining on them, a sense of healing and unity between them. An older African man sitting under a tree with young villagers gathered around him, telling a story with expressive hands, wearing simple traditional robes, a peaceful smile on his face, as if passing on wisdom through generations.